Hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining today's stream news summary from Moscow program. And as always, I have prepared quite a number of news on some major topics that Russian media, partially Russian public, also pays attention to. And hopefully, you will find this update informative and useful. And in that case, please click that like button. Leave some commentary if you can. Might be helpful to deal with this algorithm that is extremely aggressive, as you know. And well, without further delay, let's go through some news straight away. And I will start with this report about tragedy that occurred in Spain. Many members of community probably already are informed about it. Death toll as a result of train crash in Spain has reached 39. Tragedy occurred last evening. And yes, unfortunately, this death toll is increasing as time goes by. So let me go through some details here. Death toll from the high-speed train collision in Spain has risen to 39, according to radio station COPE. According to Europa Press Agency, citing sources in the Spanish Ministry of the Interior, 152 people were injured, five of whom are in very serious conditions, and 24 are in serious conditions. The accident occurred around 7:40 p.m. On January 18 in the town of Adamus in the province of Cordoba. Train traveling from Malaga to Madrid was carrying 317 passengers when it swerved onto the adjacent tracks, which was being used by the Madrid to Huelva train. Spanish Transport Minister Oscar Puente called the incident extremely strange. It occurred on a section of the track that was renovated in May of last year, and the train itself that derailed was relatively new, about 4 years. Emergency services continue to work at the scene. So tragedy has occurred. Maybe renovation work was done poorly. Maybe it was a terrorist attack. Also, possibility investigation probably will tell us what actually occurred. But of course, lives cannot be returned. 39 people have been killed as a result of this tragic accident. RIA Novosti also reporting that air defense systems on duty last night intercepted 92 drones that was launched by Kyiv regime with assistance of NATO to strike deep into Russian territory. 31 drones were intercepted in the Belgorod region, 29 in Saratov, 25 in Voronezh, 3 each in Bryansk, Tambov regions, and 1 in Kursk region. A relatively large-scale attempt on part of Kyiv regime and its NATO backers to strike deep into Russia. Also, I don't know if you paid attention, dear friends, but according to reports that I have seen on internet, in the past several days there was meetings that were going on in the U.S. It again allegedly, very little information is known about it officially, and meetings are taking place between representatives of Kyiv regime and U.S. potentially with participation of Witkoff and Jared Kushner, representatives of Trump and his administration. According to reports that I see on internet, yet again, information is quite scarce. Kyiv regime's delegation is led by David Arahamia, head of fraction in the parliament of Kyiv regime, from the ruling party of Zelensky's regime, servants of the people. And this is quite interesting because if you remember a couple of days ago, NABU and SAP, Anti-Corruption Bureau staff, went for searches, including in homes of David Arahamia also, among other MPs there. in Kiev, right? And maybe this search, maybe this activity of NABU was related to upcoming potential talks between representatives of Kiev regime and the American side in US. Maybe Washington wanted David Arhamir and all the other members of the delegation to be little more down to earth than they usually are. And blackmail, well, blackmail tactics are beloved ones for Washington, as you know, and they are using these blackmail tactics quite effectively. Negotiations allegedly are taking place for last 2-3 days at least. And yesterday I saw on one of the sources reports that topic of discussion mainly is withdrawal of the Kiev regime forces from Donbass, potentially from Kherson and Zaporozhye region. Let's see what official information will come out of these talks, if anything at all, because we should keep in mind, dear friends, that yes, Washington can blackmail David Arhamir, Washington can blackmail Zelensky himself or anyone else if they want to, but same time, globalists or globalist-controlled regimes in Europe also are quite actively involved in all this process in a way that they are giving their support to Kiev regime, right? And maybe blackmail alone on part of US would not be enough. Because if Zelensky, Arhamir, Budanov, who is the head of Zelensky's office now, if they have all the support from London, let's say, right, and other European capitals, they might feel quite comfortable to carry on with the agenda that they've been given by their European masters. Could be a case, but in any ways, before very little is known about these negotiations, well, maybe we will actually, maybe that is an indicator that some serious talks are happening, because whenever there is too much noise around any developments, it's rarely goes beyond media, and beyond public relations. But real talks, real negotiations usually are conducted in quiet. So maybe this is the case. In upcoming days, we might learn some more about this stuff. And by the way, according to reports, a reason why Witkoff and Kushner did not visit Moscow, that was planned for today, allegedly for this Monday, is exactly these talks that are taking place in US between Kiev regime's delegation and an American side. And after these talks, probably maybe today, later on, maybe tomorrow or day after, we will learn about potential date of Witkoff's and Kushner's visit to Moscow. They have to have something, right, to bring into Moscow to discuss with either aides of the Russian president or with Vladimir Putin himself. So we're going to find out in upcoming days. Also, head of DPR, according to Vzгляд newspaper, stated that Russian Pushilin, by the way, Denis Pushilin, stated that Russian troops are only 30 kilometers away from Slavyansk, major stronghold of the Kiev regime, one of the two major strongholds that Kiev regime still has in the DPR, and this is of course Slavyansk Kramatorsk agglomeration, which is something important to keep in mind. The Russian troops further advancing in Liman area, and many military channels, many experts already are calling that direction not the Liman direction, but Slavyansk direction. So once Liman will be liberated by Russian forces, and it will not take probably more than a couple of weeks from now, then it's going to be official, right? Everyone going to call direction Slavyansk Kramatorsk direction. Also, TASS news agency reported that about neutralization or liquidation of dozens of elite Ukrainian armed forces soldiers in Zaporozhye region. Let me go through some details here. Several dozen soldiers from the two elite units of the Ukrainian armed forces were killed in the Zaporozhye region over the past 3 days. Igor Kimakovsky, an advisor to the head of the Donetsk People's Republic, told the TASS about it. He also stated that this neutralized enemy militants were from Shkval regiment and also from Da Vinci Wolf's unit. Earlier on January 16, Kimakovsky also told the TASS news agency that the Ukrainian elite assault regiment Skala and Shkval has been partially destroyed in the Zaporozhye region while taking numerous casualties as a result of significant activity of the Russian frontline aviation and FAB strikes, and also due to significant activization of the Russian drone operators in the direction. Also important, of course, Russian armed forces have initiative all along the front line, not just in the Zaporozhye region, but deployment of these so-called elite formations of Kiev regime in this direction highlights how bad the situation for Zelensky and his criminal associates and their Western backers are in this particular sector, as it is the case in any other, by the way, actually. RIA Novosti is also reporting that, Greenland, of course, still continues to make headlines, by the way, all over the world, in the Western world and the rest of the world. And the Russian media, of course, also pays attention to these developments. And we have this report from RIA Novosti, which is based on article in Financial Times, that EU is considering imposing tariffs on the US, retaliatory tariffs, basically, for 10% tariffs that the US is imposing on 8 European states for deploying their troops into Greenland. And Europe might retaliate with the tariffs for 93 billion euros worth of goods from US. Definitely, this information, this decision on a potential decision on part of Brussels would not go down well in Washington. And who knows, Trump promised that 10% tariffs will be imposed on these European countries that send their troops to Greenland now, and another 15% or maybe 25% in summer. And today or tomorrow, Trump might say, you know what, now I'm imposing 25% tariffs now on all European goods that are exported to US from there. Maybe number will be even higher. In any case, by the way, even 10% tariffs on European goods is a colossal hit on European economies. Nothing to be said, anything above that. But yet again, European quasi-states, this European Union that acts as a quasi-state also, are trying to play ball game with US, and I don't think this will go down well for them. Yet again, if all this story, all this escalation around Greenland between US and Europe is not part of quite a complex deception operation, and it might be, because I still find it hard to believe that these alleged allies are going after each other this way, man, with total disrespect of each other. It's insane, right? No one had any high expectations from the Western elites, that's for sure. But I don't think any of us have seen anything like that before. When it comes to relationships between European elites and American elites, they might never actually were friendly, only pretending to be such. But and there was several instances in past when relationships were quite hostile. For example, we can remember when Egypt nationalized Suez Channel, right? US was pressurizing France and UK big time, right? To not to get engaged militarily, right? Not to launch a war against Egypt. So relationships between them were never actually very friendly. But still, man, at least in my lifetime, I have not seen anything like that before, and that's why I'm considering possibility that maybe all this story is just some massive deception operation to keep attention of certain people, certain governments in somewhere else, instead of being focused on developments around themselves, right? And I'm talking about Russia, I'm talking about Iran, by the way, I'm talking about some other directions too. We will find out shortly, anyways, right? Renost is also reporting that Germany might increase the rent of military bases for the US due to American tariffs. Yet again, one more reason for Washington to increase tariffs on Germany in this particular case, which will decimate already crumbling German economy, of course, for which exports in US are a last hope, basically, to stay afloat. Also, we have report that Europe might take extreme measures over the Greenland, according to Wall Street Journal, which is that European countries might actually dismantle US bases or try to blackmail US with such a threat. So, report is that European countries may ban the United States from using military bases in the region in response to the situation around the Greenland. Wall Street Journal reports. Well, I can go into details, but I don't think it's worth. This main part itself is quite telling. European elites are desperate and they are trying hard to somehow deter Washington in this escalation, which might be real, might be not. I have no strong opinion on that yet. And yesterday, as you know, dear friends, I did mention that Germany allegedly considering to potentially shut down even Ramstein base, which is the biggest U.S. Military base in Europe, right? Well, that will be quite something, actually. That will force Washington to consider its next steps, although it all depends on the leverage that US has over the Europe, and US does has a tremendous leverage over the Europe in many ways, in political, geopolitical, in economical, financial, you name it, right? I don't think Europe is in position to do anything really against US and succeed in that. And RIA Novosti is also reporting that even though there is some strong statements from Berlin, from Paris, from London, other capitals that being tariffed additionally by Trump, US president, Germany, very same Germany, Bundeswehr, by the way, German defense minister, was very quick to remove its troops from Greenland. And that's what they did, by the way. 24 hours after Trump announced their additional 10% tariffs, Germany withdrew its military personnel, according to reports that I see. 13 militaries that Germany sent. 13, by the way, 13. 13 militaries that Germany sent to Greenland. There were not given no explanations whatsoever, just ordered to take a flight to Europe. And that's what they did. Although Bundeswehr stated that our mission was accomplished. So German armed forces considered their mission in Greenland accomplished. Lieutenant Colonel Peter Milewik told the Funk media group, cooperation with our Danish colleagues has been exceptionally positive and constructive in this short period of time. German troops only spend like 24 to 48 hours, maybe not even 48 hours, but 24 to 36 hours in Greenland. And they were evacuated in emergency way, right? So yeah, Germany is claiming that her mission is accomplished. Also in this quarter, we can read, we have received all the support we could possibly imagine, he told reporters of nuke at the nuke airport, from where German militaries fly back. And yes, that was embarrassment, of course, for Bundeswehr. They sent troops to make a point, and once Trump announced tariffs, 10% tariffs, I mean, they straight away removed their troops, by the way, within their hours, right? This is not the way how self-respecting government is operating, right? But yet again, as I said, US has all the leverage over their European NATO member states, and these European states have basically nothing to counter the US, just statements maybe and some PR operations, right? PR stands. And that's exactly what they did in regards to Greenland, isn't it? Also, Trump went to poster on his Truth Social. NATO has been telling Denmark for 20 years that you have to get the Russian threat away from Greenland. Unfortunately, Denmark has been unable to do anything about it. Now it is time, and it will be done. President Donald J. Trump, he continues to push for Greenland, and push for this false narrative that Russia is causing any threats for Greenland, or China for that matter, by the way. Chinese foreign ministry also made their official statement and called US not to use a false pretext to justify their own actions, right? That has nothing to do with China, which is true, by the way. I mean, even Danish leadership is acknowledging that the last time they have noticed Chinese vessel around Greenland was, they don't even know when. That's how long has passed, and Russian vessels every now and then maybe are moving around, but Russia is an Arctic nation, by the way. Russian vessels are all around the Arctic, always, just always, right? That's what Arctic nations do. Their vessels are just everywhere, right, in the northern latitudes. And the Russian leadership also said, like on numerous occasions, that this is nonsense, right? That Russia is causing any threats to either Denmark or to Norway. But you see, Denmark has failed to its own propaganda. Danish leadership was lobbying to talk about Russian threat day in, day out, 24/7, right? And Trump is using now this Danish propaganda itself against Denmark. Well, you were saying that, well, Russians are coming, right? It was you, isn't it? That's what Trump's point is. You, Denmark, was saying day in, day out that Russians are coming, they're going to be worried that today or tomorrow or day after. So you know what? You cannot protect Greenland, right? So we're going to do it from Russians and from everyone else, right? So we'll understand this is all insane battle between the insane narratives from American and European side. But eventually, even if all this topic of escalation between the sides is part of some massive deception operation, eventually I'm quite sure Denmark will lose Greenland, and US will regain control over it. Already talks are that US is offering $600 to $700 billion for a Greenlander. That's the one scenario that allegedly things might go down. Also, there is another scenario that Greenlanders might vote in a referendum for independence and then join the US, then sign up some agreement with the US. But allegedly, Trump wants to deal with the Greenland as soon as possible. He don't want to waste years on this matter, and maybe before end of this year, US will actually establish full control over this island. Could be case, man. Could be. Also, it's not just the Greenland, isn't it? Quite a number of countries now are sort of afraid of US unwanted US attention or the attention of the American ruling class. And one of those countries is Canada, obviously. And Trump already is creating the narrative, by the way, that Washington probably will push, that Canada's defense capabilities are not satisfied, not on a best possible level. And well, this is exactly the topic that US is using against Denmark, isn't it? That they are unable to secure Greenland, so therefore US will take care of it. And now Washington will do the same with Canada, pushing the narrative that, well, you Canadians, you don't spend on military enough, you don't really have military, you are capable of nothing, so therefore we have to come and secure the situation. Well, who's gonna stop them, man? You tell me, who's gonna stop Washington if they will actually go ahead with this stuff? Having not yet resolved the issue with the Greenland, Trump is increasingly complaining to his aides about Canada's vulnerability to Washington's opponents in the Arctic, NBC reports. And of course, in case of Canada, US will most likely also push narratives that, Russians are coming. Russians are coming, Chinese are coming, well, those creatures from Andromeda galaxy also are coming. So because you are unable to defend yourself, well, we will do it for you, right? So you have to become our state or something like that. So yeah, Canadians, enjoy your independence while you can, because soon you're gonna become Americans, I guess. Although technically speaking, you are Americans, right? You're living in American continent, right? So yeah, Canada is also is a target for American ruling class, as many other countries, including Iran, by the way. Jerusalem Post, Israeli propaganda outlet, come up with an article that U.S. boosts presence in the Middle East as Iran's strike remains possibility. So Jerusalem Post is still pushing this narrative that U.S. is just, building up its military presence in the region, and their strike still might. Let's go through some details here. American armed forces continue to increase their presence in the Middle East, deploying additional forces to the region, including aircraft carrier strike group led by USS Abraham Lincoln, which is moving from South China Sea area, I believe, towards the Middle East, and will be there probably either today, tomorrow, in next 24, 48 hours, I guess, plus minus a little bit there. The ships have reached the Strait of Malacca and are expected to enter the area of responsibility of the U.S. Center Commander, CENTCOM, in the next 5 to 7 days. Okay. So it will take longer then. I was thinking they are closer. At the same time, 12 F-15 fighters have arrived in Jordan, and their military transport aircrafts have arrived at the Diego Garcia base, including large-scale preparations for possible military actions. And once Diego Garcia is mentioned, then yes, soon probably it's going to be not just our military transport planes there, but also B-2 bombers. Probably some of the B-2 bombers stationed there already, right, or being deployed there already. American officials told the Jerusalem Post that all options are on the table now. They added that their goal is to create a significant grouping in the region that will provide President Trump with a wide range of options in case he decides to strike Iran. I think he already decided that he's going to go ahead, or not Trump necessarily, but whatever forces are behind him. Western ruling class, let's say, already have decided that they're going to escalate in the Middle East. I said a million times before that in terms of Middle East, the main goal of the Western ruling class is to create a regional war on the sectarian and ethnic lines. And whatever is happening in regards to this region, in terms of policies of Israel, in terms of policies of US or other Western countries, is exactly about that, about destabilizing the region, creating and provoking a regional war on religious and ethnic lines to shut down navigation in the Persian Gulf through Hormuz Strait, and cut off this world from Middle Eastern energy sources. First of all, of course, Global South, China, to be more precise, China is main target, and there are many people still are asking me questions time to time why I think they won't. I mean, Western elites want to shut down navigation in the Persian Gulf. That will hit Western economies too and stuff. By the way, it's all about goals, right? Priorities. For Western ruling class, the number one priority is to get rid of main opponents on the geopolitical scale, and they see as a main opponents Russia and first of all China, of course, right? So anything that will help them to advance this geopolitical agenda will be positioned as a priority, much big priority than potential difficulties that European economies or their American economies, Western economies will face once they will shut down navigation in the Persian Gulf, right? Because they know China gonna be hit hard, and in absence of Middle Eastern energy sources, China gonna increase imports from only possible direction, which is Russia. Central Asian republics, former Soviet republics, Kazakhstan, for example, that is rich with the oil, Turkmenistan, that is rich with the gas, okay, that's a possibility, and Russia, of course. And that's exactly what Western ruling class wants, to force China to increase its own dependence on Russian energy towards the critical level, and at that point, when this dependence of China on Russia is absolutely critical, Western ruling class will try to derail relationships between Moscow and Beijing. And I'm afraid they think they have enough assets in China and in Russia that they will manage to do so. And if they will actually manage this, then in that case, if Beijing will start fearing that Moscow might turn away, right, distance itself from China, well, Beijing will go hysterical, isn't it? Because they cannot afford to lose last major energy supply for its economy, because that will kill China, right? Literally kill China and the Chinese ambitions. And what will they do in that case? They will go ahead with the military operations, right, to secure closest energy fields, which is yet again in Central Asian republics and in Russia. And by the way, history, as one say goes, history repeats itself, isn't it? And if you remember, during the Second World War, Anglo-Saxon elites did the same with somewhat same, by the way, with Japan. Tokyo didn't want it to actually launch a war against the US, right? And many admirals, many militaries, high-ranking militaries, were telling Emperor that this was a bad idea to attack US because of their industrial capabilities of the US, right? They were calculating everything. But Anglo-Saxon elites, they cut off financial lines for Japan and energy lines for Japan, by the way, and basically leave Japan in a corner from which only way out was to go ahead with the military action, right? Confront US, right? BRICS too, by the way, but of course, US was a major force. So Western ruling class has experience and knowledge how to provoke countries, how to corner countries, and then basically force them to act in a way that Western elites want, right? So this is a real danger in my personal opinion, and that's how I was saying since forever at this point, that neither Moscow neither Beijing can ever allow Western ruling class to actually provoke regional war in the Middle East. This is too important for safety of the both countries to keep Middle East as stable as possible and to keep navigation in a Persian Gulf and Hormuz Strait open. This is just too important, right, for strategical reasons for both countries. And if necessary, both Russia and China should deploy navies and ground forces to secure the region from this destructive activity of the West, right? And maybe this will actually happen, because danger that destabilization of the Middle East causes for China and Russia is just tremendous, right? Tremendous. It's an existential threat. And well, can you imagine if Western ruling class did manage to succeed in these plans that they have and are working on for decades now, then they will get rid of two main opponents on geopolitical challenge their dominance ever after, right? Because they will never allow anyone country to stand up. They have learned their lessons, right? And to minimize potential impact on Western economies, well, Trump just secured Venezuela, isn't it? For example, richest country by oil reserves. So, you know, they have means to minimize impact, negative impact on their own economies, while hurting hard China and the global South, generally speaking, with the destabilization of the Middle East and with the destruction of the navigation through the Persian Gulf. I hope I'm explaining well enough, by the way. I mean, to me, this is just it's like chain, logical chain, right? Take a look at their policies of the West in past decade or two. Take a look what they do now and what their target might be in the future, and you will come up with an analysis like I did, probably. You know, at least that's how I see personally the situation, right? But for a long time, by the way, I was writing about risks of such developments years before I even started making the videos on the channel. Anyways, let's continue with some other news. And so, yes, U.S. is threatening Iran, and will most likely go ahead with their attacks, because Trump himself posted a link to Fox News's article or video, and commented and basically quoted Marker Thiessen. I predict Trump will visit a free Iran, free Havana, and free Caracas before he leaves office. This was said by someone, Mark Thiessen. I have no freaking idea who this someone is, but Trump quoted this statement, right? Sending a message that, yeah, that's what his target is. They did manage to establish control over Venezuela, at least for now. It seems like Havana is definitely in the list. And I was saying from the beginning that massive buildup of U.S. military capabilities in the Caribbean is not just about Venezuela, but first and foremost about Cuba. And I think my reading of the big picture was correct and is correct in regards to that region. And well, Trump is saying himself that yeah, he intends to visit Havana, free Havana, whatever he means under the free Havana. He means that, yeah, attacks on Iran probably are inevitable. They will build up military capabilities and will attack Iran. They don't want to occupy Iran, by the way. We should understand that task of the Western ruling class is to destabilize the region, right? To destabilize Iran, provoke internal confrontation between different religious groups, different ethnic groups. Do the same in rest of the countries, right? Just that's what they want, to destabilize region, to create a regional war, right? When there is chaos and destruction everywhere. And in that situation, of course, they will manage easily through their proxies or in any ways, right? Or whichever ways, to shut down navigation through Persian Gulf, right? They will sink a couple of vessels if necessary, and make it literally impossible for tankers to move around. they will do it, man. It's just a matter of time. If, of course, China and Russia will not stand strong and will not oppose this existential threat that Western ruling class is generating, right? I think Russia and China should already have a heavy military presence in the region, naval presence, maybe ground forces, maybe negotiations are necessary to some of the countries in the region to deploy troops too, right, for security purposes. Who knows, maybe behind the closed doors such talks are taking place, because we just cannot afford, by the way, Middle East to be destabilized on a regional scale. I mean, we just cannot afford that. Neither Russia, neither China, neither the rest of the world, by the way, right? Western ruling class is one thing, and humanity is on the other side, right? So humanity cannot afford this to happen. The Analyst is also reporting that, after a series of clashes between Damascus regime forces and the Kurdish militants in northern eastern parts of Syria, allegedly they did sign a ceasefire agreement, which is more like a capitulation act from Kurdish militaries that Damascus demanded. Although, by the way, I have seen these reports about ceasefire being signed between their sides on numerous media outlets, but at the same time videos are coming in about clashes, about more and more troops of Damascus regime being deployed in the northern eastern parts of their Syria, and about clashes. So I don't know what to believe, really. I don't know what to believe. I don't think Kurdish militaries, at least in predominantly Kurdish populated areas, will actually capitulate. In predominantly Arab areas, in the Deir Zor province, in Raqqa area, where Arabs are majority, Kurdish troops probably will withdraw from those areas, so they are already withdrawing. But from areas where Kurdish people are majority, they will give a fight. I think they will stand to the last, probably because I really don't think they're gonna obey orders from Damascus. And probably many Kurdish people are now see themselves to be betrayed by their Western allies, by their Israeli allies, also by their American allies, British allies, German allies. And many Kurdish commanders or their leaders probably are regretting that at one point when Russian militaries were still engaged in a fight against terrorists that overrun Syria and against whom Kurdish forces are fighting now. At one point, many of you probably know, there was a situation when Wagner PMC formation was moving towards oil fields and the gas fields. It was a Deir Zor area, I believe, and Kurdish commanders called U.S. air support on Russian Wagner units, and according to different reports, a few hundred members of Wagner PMC were killed as a result of airstrikes of the Americans. And after they did it, and rumors are, by the way, that Kurdish leadership themselves eliminated all those commanders that give this order, called the American airstrike on Russians, PMC members. But nevertheless, relationships obviously are bad, just bad, man. Right? Russia not going to support Kurdish troops. I don't think anyone will forgive them what they did, right? It was a betrayal. And by the way, you think what is going on now? This Damascus regime according to reports, already established control over the very same gas fields and the oil fields, for which Kurdish commanders several years ago called the airstrike on Russian Wagner PMC. You see, man, they will pay a heavy price now for that betrayal. And I remind you, Russian militaries and Kurdish militaries, this militia, were cooperating to avoid their potential escalation, right? Misunderstanding and stuff. They were in contact. And actually, there was no fight between Russian troops, regular troops, and the Kurdish troops, right? But Kurds betray Russia. They called their airstrike on Wagner PMC. It was not a regular troops, but it was a Russian PMC, right? And that was a death sentence for many of them. And they lose those oil and gas fields. They lost it anyways. So, yeah, very poor decision on part of Kurds at the time, for sure. And obviously, by the way, this offensive of Damascus troops are supported by Turkey. And Turkey loves to hate Kurds, right? Generally speaking. Turkey loves to hate everybody, but especially Kurdish people. And their aspirations for independence, wherever they are, in Turkey itself or in Syria or elsewhere, right? So yet again, some media outlets, many media outlets are reporting about ceasefire being reached between the sides, but at the same time, videos are coming in, reports are coming in that clashes are still continuing and actually intensifying. So it is difficult to say what is actually going on there. Pentagon, meanwhile, plans to deploy 1,500 troops to Minnesota, where unrest still continues to nowadays after ICE officer shot at a point-blank range, basically, a female in a car about a week ago now. And yes, already videos being published when U.S. National Guard vehicles were spotted on the entrance to the Minnesota, and maybe in next 24 to 48 hours, U.S. will actually deploy troops to secure the city or to reestablish control over the streets of the city, because seems like ICE officers, FBI officers are struggling to establish control over the city, and the local police seems like also are not really that keen to cooperate with these federal institutions. So soon army might be deployed. Yesterday I mentioned, dear friends, the Chinese special forces run Venezuela-style decapitation drills, which is understandable, not just China, but I guess all the other countries that have capabilities probably will conduct such drills now, because Pandora's box is open, right? Pandora's box is being opened by American side, and probably in upcoming years or decades, we're gonna see not just once or twice operations similar to what happened in Venezuela. And Western ruling class should not complain when that will happen, because if they can do it, then others can do also. That's how it is. A few more news about some economical stuff. The interior of their import substituting SG100 will be shown for the first time at an exhibition in India, which is great news. So the new cabin and their import substituting SG100 Russian aircraft, by the way, aircraft will be presented to the public for the first time at the Wings India 2026 exhibition, which will be held from January 28 to 31st in Hyderabad. Rostec announced this, and hopefully some contracts will be signed India needs a lot of planes. India also wants to domestically build their passenger planes, and we might see some contracts even being signed, not just to purchase these Russian planes, SJ hundreds, Superjet hundreds, but also to transfer production of these planes on Indian soil too, production and technology, obviously, right? And yeah, hopefully this will happen because it will be beneficial for aerospace industry of the both countries, isn't it? And Superjet 100 might be the first, but soon MS-21 might follow, Tu-214 might follow, some other aircrafts that are on the final stage of testing right now here in Russia, and soon will go into production, right? And well, there is a tremendous potential, by the way, for a cooperation, right? Because it's not just the Russian market, which is quite substantial, but also Indian market, which is, I mean, massive, right? And potential of further development of Indian market is unbelievable, right? India will need thousands of planes in next 20, 30 years, thousands, literally. And of course, it makes all the sense if Russian aerospace, if companies from Russian and Indian aerospace companies will work together to gain significant portion of this enormous market, right? So hopefully we're gonna hear some good news about contracts being signed towards the end of this month from the Indian Air Show. Also, by the way, this is, I mean, I would not say this is tremendously important news, but nevertheless, something somewhat interesting, which is that Russia-US trade has increased in Trump's first year in office during the second term of his. So from January to October 2025, bilateral goods trade grew to approximately $3.9 billion. And I know you might laugh now, and probably you are laughing. 3.9 billion, really? It's a peanuts, right? It's a very low number, obviously, but Russia-US trade never was big, by the way, right? Some people might be surprised, but we never had like massive trade with US for whatever reasons, but we just did not develop a good trading relationships. And numbers were always small. Before these tens of thousands of sanctions that US imposed, their numbers probably were in like 10, 20 billion, couple of dozen of billions, by the way. Now it's in single digits, right? 3.9 billion, almost 4, which is still, I mean, okay, good. There is some relationships between the businesses of their two countries. I guess mostly this is Russian export to US of all sorts of stuff from some details from titanium for Boeing to enrich uranium, right? But nevertheless, I mean, as I said, it's not really a big deal, but something of positive that well, there is a slight increase, 19% increase, by the way, compared to 2024 in trade from January to October. So probably in last 3 months of or 2 months of 2025, number increased a little bit, so it could be 20% in reality from January to January. Might be the case. Anyways, I will end our news segment on this report that Russian Central Bank reported a record increase in Russia's gold reserves. Russia's gold reserves increased by a record $130 billion in a year, in the past year, by the way, due to precious metals prices due to tremendous increase on the prices on the precious metal. According to analysis of the central bank's data, as of January 1st, 2025, its vaults hold 195.7 billion worth of bullion, and a year later, that figure had risen to 326.5 billion. This was due to rally in the gold market over the specified period. Its price jumped 1.7 times from 2,600 to 4,400 per troy ounce. And I'm quite sure, by the way, gold will reach 5,000 relatively shortly, maybe this year, next year for sure. And eventually gold will probably reach even 7,000, I think, higher potentially, right? Only there is only one way how gold prices can come down, and that will happen when humanity will learn how to harvest asteroids, right? Asteroids, by the way, that are rich in all sorts of metals, including gold. There are different type of asteroids. Obviously, some are rock, but some are with metals, right? Mostly. And at some point in in the future, humanity will learn how to harvest these asteroids, maybe even before end of this century. And then, of course, gold prices may go down big time because there will be tremendous influx of the precious metals from the space. But until then, gold gonna be gold, and they're gonna be always priced high, right? And so that's why I think 6,000-7,000 is realistic. 10,000, I think, potentially is realistic. It all depends how fast process of de-dollarization will continue, I think. So we will see. We will see, by the way. At the same time, in physical terms, reserves even decreased. Reserves of the gold in vaults of the Russian Central Bank even decreased slightly, despite increase in volume, price-wise. And the decrease is really slight, 0.2 million troy ounce, or approximately 6.2 tons. On December 1st, this figure stood at the 74.8 million troy ounce, or 2,326.5 tons. So Russian Central Bank, by the way, has in its vaults 2,300 plus tons of gold. Not bad, but I mean, we have to double this, man. We have to double, right? We are one of the biggest gold producers, so we need to double this because gold will start already plays key role, right, in many ways, and we need gold for trade purposes, obviously, right? Gold is regaining its original weight, let's say this way, in terms of economies and trade and stuff. And that's about it, by the way. I think quite interesting statistics, isn't it? Russian Central Bank holds 2,300 plus tons of gold in its vaults. In terms of money, it's $300 plus billion just in the gold, by the way, which is not bad, but $1 trillion in gold would be better. So we have to double for sure this volume, and well, this is it. I guess this is it for news segment. I will check now. I will check Rumble. So there was no super chat on Rumble to react. I'm quite sure there was nothing through Boosty also. And I'm correct, nothing through Boosty also. And there was no message from Anna. about any question or the comment through PayPal. So therefore, this is it. This is it for an update. Hopefully, you will find the new segment, or you did find a new segment interesting, informative, and useful. And in that case, I mean, please click that like button. Please like the video and leave some commentary, or just don't do it, man. I'm kind of sick and tired of asking every freaking day. Please do this, please do that. No, don't do nothing, man. I hope you enjoy the video itself. That's good enough, right? Have a wonderful day and take care. For Patreon and Boosty communities, I will say that later on today I will have a second news update. Bye for now.